So I think we'll go ahead and begin. So my name is Cyrus Worrells. I serve as Director of Programs for the Institute for Spirituality and Health, the Texas Medical Center. For anybody who's not familiar, I see a lot of familiar faces, so you guys know about the Institute, but for anybody who may be joining us new, the Institute for Spirituality and Health, or ISH, or ISH, as we refer to it, is one of the first eight founding institutions of the Texas Medical Center. We were founded in 1955, and we were the first nationally accredited chaplaincy training program in the country. And over the years, we've offered many different sorts of programming related more to research, education, or service, all towards enhancing well-being by exploring the relationship between spirituality and health. And we look at spirituality in all of its forms, whether through a faith tradition or however anybody makes meaning, finds connection in life. And we also look at health, both in terms of what happens in the medical clinic, as well as what happens out in the community in terms of public health, and in terms of what it means to holistically feel healthy and well. One of the areas of life where we see that the intersection of spirituality and health being considered, being felt most deeply, is around matters of end of life and what lies after life, after death, and in some cases, the experience of dying. And so we've offered a program on near-death experiences several years ago, which ended up launching a book about near-death experiences with author Elizabeth Crone. And through that, we got connected with IANS and founded a chapter of Houston IANS at the Texas Medical Center. We've been offering these bi-monthly seminars for the last 2 years. So if you want to know more, I'll make a plug at the end again for the Institute. If you want to learn more about our many different sorts of programs on a wide array of topics on spirituality and health, you can visit us at spiritualityandhealth.org. But for the time being, I want to move forward with our program for tonight, Wisdom from Death, Dying, and NDEs with Brother Ed Salisbury. And we're very happy to have him. And to introduce him, I want to invite Pat Johnson, who's, along with Kathy Beasley, they came to us and organized Houston IANS. So we're really grateful to Pat and Kathy for all that they've done to make these programs happen. And Pat is a longtime friend of Brother Ed. So Pat, please go ahead and join us and mention Houston IANS and introduce our wonderful speaker.
Sure. Thanks, Cyrus. And as Cyrus said, I'm one of the coordinators for the Houston IANS Group, International Association of Near-Death Studies. And I'm pleased to introduce Ed. Ed has been a longtime friend. And when I had my NDE, he was the first person that I made contact with that had had a near-death experience. And he really helped me settle myself and made sense of what had happened to me. And Ed's been doing this for years. Ed has had 3 near-death experiences, one from a drowning, one from a car wreck. He had his first wife pass away in an accident, a boating accident, and then he had a near-death experience that was related to surgery that he had. And over the years, Ed has been instrumental in the near-death community in Central Texas and in the Houston area. He was one of the founding members of the Central Texas IANS group, support group there in Austin. He's got worlds of experience in helping others. He's been a funeral director. He's been involved in hospice care, and he's just done endless service for others. And I would like to, without any further ado, introduce Ed my savior that helped me out when I was in need from the angst of a near-death experience. Ed, take it away. Oh, Ed, you're muted.
Namaste. Howdy and greetings, you all. Maybe that's a better way to wear this. It is indeed an honor and a genuine pleasure to be present with so many of you here, almost family, friends, and new acquaintances yet to know. It is a great honor and a challenge to how to really communicate what we're really offering and presenting here. I come to you as a humble student who is trying to figure out God's will for me. I'm going to jump ahead and just acknowledge that I have had a multitude of mystical, amazing, and sometimes tragic experiences that have brought me closer and closer to the heart and will of God. And to that end, I pray that this short session will allow us to explore what is involved in dying and death and lessons learned from that experience. So I want to thank both Pat Johnson and Kathy Beasley, the IANS organization, and Texas Medical Center. So I am very pleased and delighted to have this opportunity to reconnect with an organization that kind of saved my life when I had cancer, and the surgery there brought me back or postponed my funeral. Now, my intention is that we have a roundtable kind of discussion here of what it was like to die for some of us and what we understand as the gifts that death offers. Are we good to proceed at this speed? Tell me. Now, Cyrus is silent.
Yes, proceed. It's a little choppy, so if it gets worse, I might ask you to do audio only.
I understand that's not uncommon being in the backwoods of southwest Oklahoma here. We don't have great bandwidth, but spirit will be made known to us one and all. Quickly, I believe most people know the time that I crashed my car as a young man into a tree and died, and experienced being in the mind of God, meeting my mentor, my hero Jesus, and sitting in God's lap for a life review. The next near-death experience was sinking to the bottom of my cousin's swimming pool and backing away from the planet. Instead of going face first into the light like I did on the first time, I was watching as the earth backed away, and hopefully we'll have an image that'll help communicate to that in our stories as we move along here. The third experience was having to surgically remove a collapsed lung where I died on the operating table. Those experiences are part of much inspiration that led me to become very involved with the IANS organization and to study as deeply as I could the mystical messages, not only of Christianity and Hinduism and Taoism, and wherever I could find a better insight and picture of God's presence and God's will for me. As I looked high and low to find spirit, I kept coming back to the fact that as we believe, so we receive. And for too much of my life, I believed that the world was out to get me and it was a hostile place. And out of that was framing much of my experiences of life. Today, I know that there's a whole lot more to be taught to us. As we continue to share with each other the meanings, the experiences, the insights, and the hope that the near-death experience brings to us.
Thank you again. Greetings, blessings, and hallelujah. We made it together. I've been dying to be here to tell you what it's like to die. It's not such a bad experience once you get through the exiting the body process. But I am so thankful, not only to, well, Pat Johnson, Kathy Beasley, IANS National, International, the Texas Medical Center, and especially everyone who's here listening in to our conversation. My hopes and intentions are that I can share my own personal experiences of what it was like for me to die and come back and attempt to integrate all these phenomenal experiences. The some underlying truth of the matter is we are, each and every one of us, a unique, precious, and very powerful immortal being. We are immortal beings having a temporary experience in this time-space dimension we call planet Earth. Now that's the elevator answer to what are all these death experiences been like for me. As many of you have probably heard and read that I died from that car wreck as a young man in Atlanta, Georgia. I died, I saw and entered the mind of God and answered every thought and question I wanted to answer, much like Google does today. I sat in God's lap and reviewed everything I was ashamed of, everything I was attached to, and kept learning the lessons that neither good nor bad, in the greater sense, all these experiences are opportunity to express, enjoy the joys or consequences of our thoughts and behaviors. I myself have searched high and low through various teachings of different philosophies and theologies to see where is the ultimate truth and the reason for death. And I think death is a wonderful gift because it has the bookend of this temporary journey that we are on in this physical time-space dimension. Earlier on, I attempted to open this meeting by inviting everyone to reach a point of stillness within. And I'm going to ask you one more time, if we can, to take just a moment. Join me being still and realizing that all these other faces you might see on the screen when you look, all the memories you have, are still loving presences and unique expressions of a universal oneness we call God. And I know God's will for me and for us is to love and serve one another. Now, that's a challenge because it takes a lot more than just a thought to be able to reach that present understanding. And at this point, I'd like to take time to invite a video that my dear friend David Drapella, a wonderful teacher and gifted, how do I describe dear David? He's a mystical man and a great friend. And if you would, Cyrus, would you play that video that David Drapella has submitted to share for this gathering?
Sure.
Take it away.
So many times in our lives, we wonder, why are we here? What value am I? Who am I? The depression, life itself becomes such a burden. What can I do to get out of this burden, this planet, this energy that I have? And in May of 1991, I got an answer. And I'd like to share that answer with you. The voice that came within me spoke these words. At first, this is what I asked. Where shall I go? I wake up each morning lost, searching for a purpose. Why am I here? What value am I to this planet? I want to escape, so I do all man-made things. I drink alcohol so the pounding of my mind ceases for a while. I alter my consciousness by artificial means. I use drugs as I do alcohol. And for what? Again, to alter the consciousness of my mind. I want to run and hide. And the only way I can is through induced man-made products. But in time, I wake up and find I'm back to square one, the beginning. Shame of who I am and what I am falls on me like the darkness falls upon daylight. I fight to pull myself up, and this battle rages within me like wars. And the harder I fight, the stronger it gets. Death would be welcome, but the cowardness in me will not let me end my energy. The addiction is like a giant spider web. It has me. And the more I fight, the more entangled I become. I scream for this God who is supposed to be the supreme commander. Where are you? If you exist, why do you not save me? Where shall I go? In 1 second of silence, I hear a voice within me, and my soul says, come home. Come back to where you came. Lie quietly in your mother's womb. I gave you life so that you might learn. Do you not know that you came from somewhere and you must travel your road? How can you hear me when you are screaming? Did I not teach you this in the beginning of your journey by allowing you 9 months of quietness within your own self? Fight, my child. There is nothing to fight. Would you rather pick up an animal that scratches and bites you, or one that loves you tenderly, and in his heart says to you, I am here for you. When you come back, I am part of love. Lie quietly, my child, within your own spirit. Do not scratch and bite at your own self. Love yourself. I have told you that I love you. Remember, if you are not your own sweet pet, who shall you be? What happens to the pet that becomes lost? How many times does he appear at your doorstep when he was 100 miles away? What miracle map did he read? The same one I have given you, but you cannot see it because of your eyes. Do you not know that I am love and the Father of all and each and every star lies within my womb? Do you not know that all that you see at night time is only a small light of the greater? Do not hate yourself. Remember, the same arm that brings alcohol to your mouth also brings food and has the ability to wrap itself around another one of my children in quiet love. You ask me the question, where shall I go? Come home. For my love for you is so great, all fear will flee, and your soul will sleep quietly within my womb. This is what I heard. This is what I heard.
Wonderful. Magnificent. And thank you, David Drapella, for such a beautiful expression of a phenomena that I struggle to find the words for. We are gifted with the technology to see and hear one another's stories and to share one another's hopes and dreams and support each other in fulfilling that. And this near-death experience community of IANs across the planet is a wonderful platform that I encourage everyone to participate in and join in. I'd like at this point, Pat, can we jump to the questions I think some of you had, and I know Cyrus, you might pick up some in the chat room. But Pat, what was the first question you had?
Yeah, Ed, I was wanting to know how your experiences have transformed your life. How have they transformed you and made you different?
Wow, that is a mouthful and a head full of answers, but it totally redirected my sense of what's important in the world, my sense of purpose and being in the world. And it gave me a great deal of, I would call it sensitivity, some of which I didn't know how to handle. I think the video that we just saw from David's talks about, we want some kind of tangible stimulation. And I myself, out of frustration, went in pursuit of ecstasy with alcohol, drugs, and misbehavior for which I paid a price. Today, I'm happy to say my life has been transformed in a multitude of ways, but ultimately it's learning to serve others instead of self. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, good answer, Ed. Good answer. Well, what do you think? What do you think, in your opinion? What you learned from your experience? What does the NDEs teach us? What are the major themes that the NDE teaches us?
I think first and foremost that there is no death. There's only a transformation of consciousness to a different dimension in a different form. As I hope you heard earlier when I described the elevator answer to the question, what does it teach us, is that each and every one of us are unique, precious, and powerful, immortal beings having a temporary experience in this time-space dimension we call planet Earth. There are consequences for everything we think and do. And I recall as I was sitting on God's lap in my first near-death experience, reviewing every memory that either that I was proud of or didn't want anybody to know about, hearing the constant reply, well, in the greater sense, it's neither good nor bad. It's a lesson for the learning. Are you through? And and you can find on my Facebook links to some of those interviews if you wish, but the underlying result was I told God there's no way I wanted to go back into the world of gravity and confusion. I had a momentary attachment to say, I just want Mom to know not to worry. For me, I'm good and I'm okay. And as I had that thought, I came out of a 2-week coma in the bed in Grady Memorial Hospital, Atlanta, Georgia. In the following 5 years, there were 7 major surgeries. The encounter of drowning in my cousin's pool. When I drowned in my cousin's pool, a unique experience, I backed away from the planet. In the first experience, there was a white light in the distance, and I found myself merging into it. The next time, I was watching the planet flow away. And Cyrus, at this point, if you could put up on the whiteboard that picture of Earth and Sun, that would help me communicate to our friends here what I was seeing. If you look at your screen, can you see where you are in this picture? And imagine as I was backing away from the Earth, I saw that planet Earth right in the center of what looks like a spider. That's the energy belts, Van Allen belts, other belts that surround this planet, dynamic and flowing. The sun up above is sending rays down, and you can see those little puff of white clouds coming in that are transforming, sending heat and solar flares and sometimes static in our radio signals. This is the kind of image I saw as I backed further and further and further away from the planet. Thank you, Cyrus. You can go back to full screen. In my experiences, I've come to see that we are here for a purpose. We have an opportunity to learn, to serve, and to enjoy. And I'm excited about what's happening on the planet now because of the shift that's taking place. My studies in India, I remember finding that there are cycles, 20,000 years almost, between one yin cycle and one yang cycle, and vice versa. But that takes me, I guess, to the fact that we live in exciting times. We have messages from the near-death experience and for the dying that there are opportunities to serve here. And so I love being of service and being part of this conversation. Pat, do you have another one, or you want, Cyrus, did you have something that you wanted to post from the chat box?
Well, yeah, Damien asked a question. What is it like to be dead? And I think I could be wrong, but I think he's looking for an idea of what it was like to be on the other side. And to tag along with that question, there's some people that are not familiar with the life review, and a lot of us, even a lot of us that have had NDEs did not have a life review. Could you kind of give us an idea of what that was like, that experience?
By all means. I'm driving home in my Firebird convertible from a football game, December 30th, 1969, at age 26, and I crashed my car into a tree. And all of a sudden, bam, I'm floating away, looking down, saying, if that's my body, who am I? We leave the body, and suddenly we're still conscious and we're still aware. I found myself sucked away into the dark and then into a tunnel and into the white light and into the conscious mind of God. Every question I had about my relationship with my family, or why Jesus was crucified, or why, whatever question we had, it's immediately available to us in that dimension. And after I had saturated myself with questions and answers, I found myself being received by my guardian angel. And as I've worked with near-death experiences around the planet, I come to see, as you believe, so you receive. And I was believing in that God was like this picture of Moses that I saw on Hollywood TV. But there was Father God himself begging me to come sit on his lap. I was no longer caught up with the gravity of earth and body, but I was in that world of total connection to the ethereal essence of who each of us are, who I was and who I am. I got to look at, well, as I'm sitting in God's lap, he asked, well, are you through? And I backed up, I'm not sure I understand. And as he pointing at his feet, I looked down there. And for me, there was, if you've ever picked up an old photo album and all the pages fell out on the floor, it was like that for me as I looked down at these images. And no sooner could I focus on this picture than I remember that time, that experience. I got to relive stealing Coke bottles from a neighbor's garage as a young boy, smelling the musty air, praying to God that no one would see me as I ran down the alley, only to come to the conclusion of that memory and looking up into his eyes. Oh my, that was terrible. I'm a bad boy. The answer was, it's neither bad nor good in the higher sense. It was a lesson for your learning. Are you through? And I got to re-experience every thing I didn't want anybody to know about with the same kind of response. I teased a girl who sat in front of me in 5th grade because she spoke with a lisp. And I wanted to be accepted by the other rude bullies in the back of the class. I leaned forward and said, "It's as difficult for you to talk?" And she was so embarrassed. But in my life review, I got to re-experience how I behaved. Then I experienced how she felt. And I got to experience and witness how she went home and tortured her own cat out of frustration. And this illustrates how there are consequences and reverberating consequences unto other members in our planet, into other generations, if that's the way you want to see it. That is, I hope, a little answer about what it's like to die and recognize our effects on our, I guess, internal soul, our consciousness, and our presence in the world now and beyond. Next question, please.
Well, I've got one more, and then I'll let Cyrus take over. You know, I know you've gotten insights, and I'm sure that you probably have some prophetic messages that were given to you. Just given the tragedies and the wars and the dysfunction of society and families right now, where do you feel the human race is headed?
Goodness. The human race is facing a profound opportunity to transform experience of life on the planet, and going from competition to cooperation, or going to collapse and disintegration. As my sweetheart Cheryl and I witnessed so many new artifacts being shown on the planet of redefining our past and the history of various incarnations or species and habitations on the planet, I see that we as living humans now are witnessing a profound shift. And I think of it as, say, what happens to a caterpillar. To become a butterfly, it must be still, go within, liquidate and recreate all of its structures and forms so that it can emerge a transformed and new and dynamic creature on the planet. To that end, where is humanity going? We each get to choose. And again, as we believe, so we receive. Caution. Fear is also a belief. If you give your energy to what you're afraid of or what you are attached to, what you desire. I love the 5-headed dragon in the Hindu. Too much anger, greed, ego, lust, or attachment. Attachment is one of the hardest, but we face all those different forms of challenges to choose how we as individuals want to respond and behave as we continue to work our way through this incarnation. I hope that answers it. Any other comment or question, Pat? Osiris.
No, I think I like Cyrus. I know Cyrus has got some questions also. Let him give you a question, please.
Thanks, Pat.
Well, thank you, Brother Ed. The question that's coming for me is around the relationship of your near-death experiences. You know, most people don't have more than one, let alone 3 near-death experiences in different circumstances. And a lot of people, the first time they have a near-death experience, most of them haven't heard of a near-death experience before. So for your second and third near-death experiences, you know, you had already experienced it and you knew what it was. So I wonder if you can describe a little bit about having the first one and then learning about what a near-death experience is, how you made sense of that first one, and how coming to know about near-death experiences informed what happened in your second and third experiences.
Very good, Cyrus. At the time of my near-death experience, the first one, you know, I had finished military in college and I was a golden boy at Coca-Cola, Atlanta, Georgia. Lo and behold, I crashed my car into a tree and I go from 260 pounds to 140 and I'm wondering where to and what next. Yet it started me looking for answers. And I think that's the gift of the NDE. It makes us stop and say, there's more to my life and more to my reason for being here than just self-satisfaction. I recognized from the first near-death experience that there was much more to it, but this was 1970. When I went to the doctor to explain it, he said it was mostly drugs and hallucinations. I wouldn't talk to anybody about that, Ed, or you might end up locked up in a psycho ward. I thought, I went to my church and talked to my preacher, and I told him about this mystical experience, and all he had to say was, well, sounds like the devil's work. I don't think you should say that again or talk about it because it's just not in the book. So those were early experiences with the NDE. Thankfully, as more and more books like Raymond Moody's and the NDE community began to be recognized, I found out I wasn't alone. And having these mystical, transformative experiences provided me with, I guess, the impetus and drive to look deeper, look further, go beyond just the commercials on the TV and saying that's the way life is. And I studied and I learned about the Edgar Cayce group and I read extensively here and there. I think most of us watching here have done that search through books and other people's stories, but also going within ourselves to look deeper. You mentioned, and my first wife and I had been married for only 3.5 years, and I was a golden boy selling computer network services to the oil and gas industry in Houston, Texas, when we went for a sailing cruise in Corpus Christi Bay. She was knocked overboard by a boom on the sail, and I was unable to bring her to the surface. That grief stays with me and has haunted me, but has also driven me to share it. Out of that grief, I didn't know which way to go. I went to my cousins in California only to have a drowning in their swimming pool and floating away from my body into the heavens, going backwards. And there's a movie, Out on a Limb. It does a wonderful video of this floating away from the planet. And hopefully you saw that image that Cyrus posted earlier. So as I floated away, and went into the white light. First, there was my grandfather, my father's father, who had died many years earlier, welcoming me and saying, just like the day he got on the train to go back to his New England home, Eddie, my boy, I need you to tell your father, quit taking life so seriously. I was like, okay, Pa, I don't know if I can tell my master and commander, Captain Dad, because I was still the crazy kid in his mind. But I accepted that, and the next thing I saw was this beautiful apparition of my wife on the day I married her. In my second near-death experience, out of body, into the essence and the memory and the communion, where Gloria held me and then pointed at the body in the pool and said, now, is that any way to leave your family? I looked at her, I looked down there, and I looked back, and I said, I hate it when you're right, but you're right. And back
I lost my phone connection. Can you hear me here?
Yes. Currently it's working.
I'm I'm trying to get back on the line. Pat, can you take it?
I think it's
Yes,
good that
hang
you
on.
try to get back by phone because the connection was really good.
Ed, do you need those numbers again?
Uh-huh. I think, am I back? Ah,
Not
Yeah,
by phone.
sorry about that. I'm getting an echo back there, but we're okay. Okay. Help me. Where was I?
Are you in by phone? I don't see your phone.
Well, I hear you by my phone.
Oh, you do? Okay.
It's the last one on the screen.
Well, if you could unmute your phone and then mute yourself on Zoom, that will be ideal. Is your phone the 512? Yes.
now, how are we doing? Is this one got me back on the phone?
Perfect. You sound great. Thank you.
Thank goodness for technology. Well, where are we? Again, I want to thank so many wonderful familiar faces. It's delightful to be with you. I would like to acknowledge Sharon Heller, who was one of the co-founders of Ions of Austin many years ago. Hi, Sharon. And Almont, Kenny, Linda, Gus, we're all here, aren't we? But we're just not all there. Consequences of near-death experiences, eh? Before we go too far, the bottom line of all these experiences is, for me, finding ways to help people embrace the gifts that death offers. Death is a gift it's the bookend that holds our life story together. Who wants to stick around in this body as it deteriorates and it becomes an uncomfortable shell to live in? At the same time, it's exciting to witness the transformations that I am seeing on the planet today. As I go to my favorite YouTube channel and search buttons, I can look for wisdom of all kinds. And no, I don't need to be a prepper or, prepare for doom and gloom, but rather to look for the grace, the wisdom, and the goodness that is continuing to show up through the miracle of the internet. The internet just demonstrates that we are one network. We as humanity are called an interwoven fabric of the reality we share. And as we evolve, now that we can have immediate access to other beings wherever you are on the planet, we realize that we are one in the spirit. We are one in opportunities and possibilities. And to the degree that we will love and serve one another, we will receive a fulfilling sense of purpose and grace. I wish the near-death experience is so powerful and so phenomenal, but it's ineffable. I cannot tell you what my grandmother's wonderful pecan pie tastes like in any way that you would know what it was like. I can describe everything that was in it and how it was presented and how much love she put into it, but unless you put that in your mouth, no amount of words are going to convey the taste. In a similar way, the words I struggle to come up with are a shallow reflection of the awesome euphoric ecstasy that is that white light being in the presence of our source, of God as we can understand her, him, it. The force is with us. It flows in us and through us. And as we focus on the heart of God and look for it in the eyes of others, we then become what we were given bodies to become. How are we doing on time and questions?
We have about 15 minutes left, and there's a really great question that I do want to pose to you from our audience.
Please do.
This comes from Lucy. So she says, I have listened to countless NDE stories and am comforted by the similarities in spite of the differences of culture, education, and economic realm. Often they have experiences of seeing things tragic and or horrific and hear or understand the thought that all is as it should be. But with other ones of these NDEs, they can see the visible energy of prayers, and they can see the prayers make a difference And even as a result of their prayers, people return back to life. How do we reconcile that prayers make changes and yet things are as they should be?
Hmm. A very astute question. As it should be, the image that comes to my mind is a flowing river. A flowing river has its force and its energy, and it continues to flow up, flowing wherever direction destiny is headed. And we are like little boats on this flowing river. And our life, we have paddles and we can determine which direction we're going to go and which efforts we're going to put in. But that flow is also going to affect where we end up. And to that sense of flowing force guiding and directing us gives us opportunities to be still and know. The lessons that I really enjoyed and appreciated as I went to my teacher in India, because I said earlier that neither my doctors nor my ministers would accept my phenomena, and it took me some 7 years of applying to this meditation yogi master that I was studying under. It's called the Surat Shabad Yoga, known as the Radha Swami, and if you want to read some of that, sos.org is a good website. I sat with this master and I told him about my near-death experience and the dying and life review and then in the light, and after it was all over with, I said, "What do you think?" And so he sits back and he kind of says, "Well, brother, you died, you saw God, and you came back. Yes? Uh-huh. Well, I do that every night. Isn't that why we learn to die daily? Die unto your desires and fears that drive you from being still and knowing the present love of God." So I have learned that what works best in my life is to get up early, to waking up. I stretch my body, and I'm now a firm believer of earthing, going barefoot out on the planet Earth so I can experience the electromagnetic energy flow in my feet and through my body. I do my stretching and I do my meditation. Pray, meditate, serve. That's where we find fulfillment. And when we do, our life becomes filled with a lot more joy and a sense of gratifying purpose in our life. Hopefully that answered it to my ability. Next.
So this question kind of relates to the last one, which is, how does the NDE experience inform and change us to aid in human suffering? So what's the response to helping others versus accepting things as they should be, that things are as it should be?
As it should be is that this world will continue to rotate. It will continue to expand and collapse. Expand and collapse. Everything is in cycles. And at the same time, we as individuals have the opportunity to choose, where am I going to focus my energy and activity? And as I reach out to people in need, look for opportunities to serve, more and more prosperity. I don't mean financial, I mean emotional and spiritual and psychic. Sense of serenity and occasional euphoric ecstasy. You can really return to that white light experience when we truly meditate. I love the bumper sticker that says, meditation is not what you think. For me, my meditation comes between the thoughts. And a mantra meditation, some of us, and there was a time when I could experience out-of-body phenomena even as I was jogging distance runs. Each of us, like I said, is unique, precious, and powerful. And we must find where that powerful, precious point is within. It's not in dancing with and wrestling with the world outside. It is in tuning into the world inside. As I and you and everyone takes time to appreciate and look for the good in everything and serve others in appreciation, the world that we experience becomes fulfilling and exciting. I can turn on YouTube and I choose to go to one of my favorite channels, which is Vendée Globe. This is ocean racing single-handed around the planet, or planet sail, because I'm an old sailor from way back and I love riding the wind and watching thoughts become things is another exercise like riding the wind aboard a sailing ship. Sailors are having a good time in the world, and then there are other people who are worried about, the economy, the Proud Boys in America, the chaos in Yugoslavia. Anyway, Russian. We've always had people who are wanting to fight each other. But that's a lose-lose game. As we learn to put our weapons down and take time to find out and notice how much we have in common, we can start to experience the pleasures and return the Garden of Eden to planet Earth. We have that power. It's just a matter of joining together to let go of the competition, practice cooperation, and create the new heaven on earth. Next.
Question from Alma. She asks, how do you work with your heightened sensitivity while still here on earth?
Namaste, Alma, my sweet sister. Yes, there is a challenge. And I know I can remember many moments of coming back from spending I went to yoga teacher training in the Bahamas, and it was a transformative experience at the time. And as I got off the plane to come home, all of a sudden the rush and hurry of airports and taxis just came crushing in on me. It was like, oh my God, I forgot how hypertense the world around us can be. And yet I saw a mother picking up on a baby child who was worried and timid. And in that moment, I realized giving love, sharing with another, brings back a kind of sense of purpose and peace, even in the chaos we live with. I have to be compassionate, but also self-preservative. And almost what I do now is if something starts to be chaotic and disruptive and almost sabotaging my serenity, I excuse myself. I say, pardon me, Mother Nature calls. Actually, God is calling, but that's an acceptable excuse if we need something to get out of an encounter with someone is so disruptive. There is one final photo I gave Cyrus that I'd like to have on our whiteboard, just because my life story from being a nerd when I had the first near-death experience to becoming a orderly in a nursing home and then a hospice minister drove me, after I survived my cancer encounter with Texas Medical Center and lost my life savings but postponed my funeral. I went back to school and became a funeral director. And this is an optimal, challenging place to be of service and guiding people through the process. Cyrus, can you pop that little? Well, okay, there's a picture of me and some of the leaders of the industry. The lady in the middle is a teacher for what they call celebrant. In the funeral industry, more and more people are saying, oh, we're not religious. We're very spiritual, but we don't want any religious ministers here. And then the other gentleman on the right is trying to bring more compassion and what's called aftercare to the funeral industry. So here I am having a wonderful time learning from the funeral industry how to serve others. But the next picture is the one, Cyrus, that I want to see, the Rambling Wreck, do-it-yourself funerals. I have a passion to work with others. Can you read it? The cost of an average funeral in America runs about $11,000. I have had some that run to $1,100,000. It depends upon how well we have learned and related to others, and telling them what you want when you can't speak up, what you want when you're gone. But if you want to do it yourself, here's Lucky Ed doing it yourself. Before I leave this presentation, I want to encourage everyone to explore the world of death doulas, end-of-life educators. And there are some wonderful people. There's a movement in our culture these days. Hospice came from England and helped people die at home by bringing much of the hospital care to the home. Over 90% of us want to die in our own bed. The latest figures I have is 12 or another ages. 18% of us actually do that because we haven't communicated to our caregivers what we want. We haven't made the arrangements to the best of our ability. And the death doula movement is teaching people how to fill the gaps from discharge planners in hospitals who will sit down with you and say, we've done all we can, go home and make peace with God, if you will, or family. And then they give you a list of find some hospice care, if you want it or not, home care. Hospice comes in and they do a wonderful job, but it's, one visit every day or 3, and you need a hospice that has a lot of good volunteers. When the person dies, they turn and say, well, who do you want to call? Who's going to come get the body? And the funeral comes in, takes care of the body, does the funeral, and then gives you some books about aftercare and grief work. Well, the death doula movement is designed to fill the gap, the continuum of care, from knowing you're going to die to finding what resources will help you have the good death. And to that end, I can't commend anything but higher than Dr. Karen Wyatt's EOLuniversity.com. End of Life University. She has a podcast that is brilliant. But you'll find National Hospice and Palliative Care Association has a special interest group called Death Doulas. And my experiences of dying, working with the dying, caring for the dying, burying the dead, there's a calling there. And I hope many of you on this call and those who will see this in future times will indeed find a place where you might take advantage of or be part of the end-of-life caregiving community. Now, let me get off my soapbox and back to you. How do we wrap this up?
Thank you, Brother Ed. There's one more question in the chat, which is, how did you get the moniker brother? How did you become Brother Ed?
Searching, I enrolled in many seminaries. Being born, I was best described as a small town, coastal Texas country altar boy and Boy Scout who is always looking for and scouting for ways to be of service. And after my near-death experiences and losing my wife and surviving all of that, I went back to the seminary. The one in Austin says I was too disruptive. In Berkeley, they said I was a bad fit, and I got ordained in India into a fellowship and a brotherhood, emissaries of divine light. And out of that, they gave me this name. And I've had so many mystical and amazing spontaneous experiences that I've come back with everything from, I'm known as Swami Shivadas, or Surrender Singh, and Phoenix, and now just Brother Ed. Hopefully that answers the question.
It does. Well, thank you so much, Brother Ed, for being with us. You've really, it's been a great gift, and I'm glad we were able to work through all of the technological issues to hear from you loudly and clearly and powerfully. So, Pat, I saw you unmuted. Did you have another word?
Oh, yeah. I always loved the blessings that Ed would give us at the end of our meetings in our Austin chapter. And I was going to ask Ed if he would close us out with one of his blessings.
Very well, Pat, and thank you for asking. Join me, one and all, if you will, to take a deep breath in, close your eyes, and listen to the silence, the music within. Find that precious inner child that is there within us, within you, me. Holy Lord, Mother, Father, God, angels and archangels present to guide us as we come to learn from one another your loving care and your wisdom and compassion. Thank you for this gathering, for this opportunity to listen to one another, to learn from one another, and to tolerate even the technology that sometimes doesn't cooperate. Dear God, bless us one and all. In all the names that we are known. Amen. And the force is with you. Live long and prosper.
Amen. And same to you, Brother Ed. And thank you, Pat, for your collaboration, and Kathy, and and to IANS and everybody involved in IANS, and thanks to everyone here for joining and bringing your open hearts and minds, and for your own beings in the world, wherever you are, however you're joining us. And by a show of jazz hands, let's give thanks to Ed one more time. Thank you, Ed. And to all, happy holidays and a happy new year. And hopefully we'll see you again in the new year. May it be a good one.
Happy,
Blessings. Thank
happy
you.
trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Adios.
See you all.
Over and out.